Yeah, welcome back to part number 2. It was actually a mistake there. I was hitting a wrong button, so the recording stopped. I apologize for that. It was intended to be a video in full length, but it also gives us an opportunity if you want to skip the first part. That took quite some time, and then get along as we are flying now. Yeah, that's it. We have been talking a bit about the quirkiness of the aircraft and such, and from my perspective it's a bit mixed feeling, because the main project has quite some potential to be a very, very good project. However, I feel there is missing a few things. That would be some more fine-tuning and polishing here and there to get off some of the sharper edges of the main project. And that's it. Because I feel the modeling and how the aircraft looks is quite nice. There is a few things that concerns me as well, and it is the performance, because even though the aircraft might not be the most custom coded aircraft, it seems that some things is giving it a hard time when the aircraft is airborne, the autopilot is on. I have noticed that it takes some of the performance, and the smoothness of the simulator can get a bit stuttery in given areas. If you are flying into not an airport I was flying to yesterday, it was Frankfurt-Hahn. I know it's always that with Frankfurt-Hahn, more or less, but the funny thing was that first when you switched off the autopilot, it seems to run more smoothly, and when I got on the ground, the frames per second jumped up by around 5 to 10 frames per second when you just shut down the systems. That's normal, that when you do that, the performance and the frames per second would rise, but there is just something there I can't really set a finger on, but there is something that gives it a bit of a harder time than some other add-ons, and I can't really seem to figure out if it might be some of the codings behind that actually is doing it. So that's my observation there, and I have to admit that I can work around some of the quirkiness and such, but I also had the feeling from the beginning, when I actually had bought the aircraft, I actually sit and felt, well, oh shit, now I have wasted my money. That was actually my first impression. Then you slowly start doing some of the workarounds and those things, and then you get more into it, and then it improves it a bit. But again, we are not quite there, and what I fear the most is that I would not use the particular add-on that much, and then I just sit here and say, well, I wasted my money, and that's not something I'm that happy about. But that's how it is. Now I have no, what should I say? I don't have any other add-ons from this particular developer, so I actually wanted to see what it was. Also because it's a jet aircraft and it's more into my style of flying and such. So yes, and I know I am I got quite some high standards for what a good add-on is and such, and I have to say that I feel that in X-Plane there is only a few high-end add-ons, you can say, where you can say they are just solid and nearly bulletproof. And in general, I would say that if we take the world of FSX and that and X-Plane, I would say sometimes that there is more into FSX than there is into X-Plane, and that's also because FSX, most developers is ripping out the most of the simulator, where here in X-Plane they are using some more of the default stuff. And I know we have moved quite a bit in X-Plane as well, because when I started out it was default autopilot, now all that. Now we are seeing things like what you see in this aircraft, where they start customizing the flight level change and speed mode and that, because yeah, I know it because I had my autopilot project, so I had to look into some files and could see that there was some custom made codes in there, or workarounds, you can say, in a lighter way, you can say. And that's basically what you can say. In general, in flight simulation, if you should have the perfect simulator, you should if you should have a perfect simulation of a particular aircraft, you actually need a company to do that, and then you could say you need a company just to do the environment. So you could say you just needed Laminar to just make a simulator, making the visuals, making all the things around, and let a team program the particular aircraft. And that's also why we sometimes see those performance issues that people are talking about, and we know it all, but we can't get both. That's the sad story. We want a well-simulated aircraft, but in reality the only way they can do it is nearly like building it like the real aircraft and making all those systems. And the more systems you are building, the more pressure you got on the system, because one thing is the system should be taking care of the main simulator, but it also has the custom coding that it actually has to process and do what is required, like it would be in the real aircraft. So in fact, we would need a supercomputer if we should make it 100% as a real aircraft. So that's also something to take into account. But there are different ways we are developers are doing it, because that's what you can see in add-ons. Some of it can be down to how graphical your project is. Sometimes it can be down to how much you are programming it, because sometimes you best example I actually got is when I originally was working on a project for FSX. It was below an airport, and I really wanted it to look right, and I did a lot of things, and that's not for an aircraft, that's just an airport. I was building objects, and they should be looking right as it was, and all that kind of stuff. And in the end, you just sit with a project, and the simulator just goes down to single digits frames per second. And why is that? Well, it is the details. Then it is that you have to simplify the details. And there are quite some nice tools right now for FSX at a given forum, where they have a program where you actually can pull out some of the bad elements in your main objects, so it actually gets that a bit. The visual is only decreased a bit, but the program actually goes in and puts the slowing elements out, you can say, so the main object gets more simplified, and that as well gives a smaller footprint on the performance in the simulator. So that's how it is. And that might also be why you see Caronado is keeping it more to the simple stuff, more or less default autopilot and such. But not all. Only that. I guess some of the reason that Caronado and Alberis are also doing it is because you can go in and program your SciTech hardware or whatever you got. As then people can go out and buy some simple hardware and use it, where in more or less some of those add-ons here, it gets more and more less compatible with hardware. And that's what we saw in FSX in the beginning. That's just what is coming for X-Plane now, as there is coming so many add-ons and they start to code around. And that's some aspects really to take into account. You really need to understand all those aspects and in which direction a company want to go. You can say Caronado gives you the option to use your hardware. They give you the option to have an aircraft that is very, very visual. They have nice developers that can produce aircraft that really look like the real deal, and they are shinier than ever, and all that kind of stuff. It just has a huge load on your graphic card, as it needs quite some memory to process all that. Because if Caronado started to very much simulate the add-on to what others companies is doing, they might end up with an add-on where the performance is worse than it is in worst case scenarios, because then you are giving a high load both for the graphical aspect as well as the processing unit. So it really has a hard time, and then it can't you can't add an airport and such, because then the performance would just go right down to the bottom. And Carinator knows that the visual shininess, that's more or less what sells to people. That is more or less just for a quick flight, and doesn't care much about procedures and how it is operated and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Because I also have had some Carinator aircrafts, and I have made a review about it in the past in a written document that was published on the website and such. And you can really feel that Carinator has moved, because in the beginning they really highlighted real weight and balance, real this, real that, in all aspects. You just have to note one thing, and it is that even though most companies go out and say this is tested by real world pilots, yes, it can be, it is tested by real world pilots, but there is no one saying that this is the best of the best on the market. Because yes, they can go in and say this feels like the real aircraft and this doesn't, and those things, and you as customer do not see those information because it is compromises. And I know that because I have been flying a lot of add-ons and such, and when you get out to the pilots, well, yes, they can go out and say, well, it is very nice and looks nice how far simulation actually has got, because that's actually what real world pilots have said. But they also know that some aspects it is still quite far from being the real thing. Because there are some aspects that our simulators is not capable of doing as it is at the moment. So that's something that you have to keep in mind. And yes, I'm talking quite a bit. I apologize. But it is just because I have been into this for quite some time. And I also have been imagined by, wow, this is just. But as long as you keep saying, well, this might be the real thing, well, then it might be the real thing. But when you then start looking at the videos and see how things are programmed and all that kind of stuff, you would see how things are. Also something that you can say that is quite stunning, you can say. It was for me when I was first talking to a pilot that was in an airline, and he has been flying quite a lot of different aircraft and such. And the particular aircraft he was flying at that point, he was actually saying that, well, he might only know 20 to 40% of the capabilities of the FMS system. The aircraft was actually had more capabilities than he actually was trained for, or had knowledge about. Of course, I know some of the things is not used for pilots. They are like in the 737 and 747 and whatever aircraft. I have been in some of those aircrafts at a flight technical service and seen some of the stuff that is based for the flight mechanics, because there are actually pages in the FMS system or FMC or MCU system that is actually for maintenance, and that of course expands the knowledge of the particular system, because the pilot would not know 100%. They would not do that because some of it is from maintenance. So, but when you start thinking about that, the pilot actually was saying that you are talking about someone that is flying daily passengers from A to B on a daily basis and still does not make use of given systems. I personally have to say, well, VNAV is not something I'm doing that much, and that's also why I have not programmed it here, because it takes quite some time to set up and all that stuff, and in reality, if you're flying, the air traffic controller most of the time is giving you altitude restrictions and all that kind of stuff. So in reality, VNAV and such, yeah, as well as though that is sitting and say, well, sits and stars and all that kind of stuff. I really like it isn't there. Do not mistake that. I really do. However, just note that the whole procedure is often not flown. Basically, sits and stars is standard procedures that takes off some of the workload of the air traffic control. It is to lower their workload, to make it easier for them. So that's some keynotes about it. And yes, we could have climbed a bit higher, I know. But again, to stay clear of any strong winds and turbulence, we did not do that. Of course, it is sideways, a drifting wind from the left, you can see right now, but we should have been flying this. So that was basically why we choose not to fly too high, because of that, as well as our fuel burn is higher now, but we need to do this video in a short manner, just to make that right. But there isn't very much more to say for me right now, as such, because the aircraft is capable of flying from A to B, even though it has a few quirkiness here and there. Okay, and now let's see how to check. I need to check the weather at Aberdeen. Let's see. It says runway 34 in use. Let's see if that's actually right. 34. Then we would do an ILS or something like that, perhaps. There we go. Enter. Vectors. Yeah, we can do vectors for it. Yes, and load it. Very important to load it, not activate it. Because if I activate it, it would be flying straight out here, and then sometimes it does. If it's too far out, you might end up somewhere else. Not the most nice thing to tell your passengers that we got off course, because because of a mistake. Okay, but we are getting closer now to the destination, and we also get a bit more of a tailwind now. That was actually also why we wanted to fly more directly now. Also because now we are more or less in a better position, and you can see our ground speed has also increased a bit, as far as I remember here. Around 50 nautical miles away from the destination, so we should soon start our descent. Even though we can make a very steep descent. If I pull the speed brakes, you would see that it was nearly nosedive, as they are very, very effective. But of course, it's the speed brake that is working on the upper side of the wing and from the lower side of the wing as well, from underneath as well, I should say. And that would really erupt the airflow. So that. But again, it flies very nicely when it's flying. Just has its few things that could be fine-tuned. So that's how it is. Can jump over here to the co-pilots. TV, expander, stand by, all that. Not messed with that, as we have not been doing so. And that was actually something we would have seen if we had the yoke set back, got the button, yeah. Funny, you can see it is only in the left hand side that that the button is working, as you can see. it is inoperative in the other side. So that was just one thing I would note. Yeah, you got a white flashlight that you can switch on here. You could, of course, do what I sometimes do, assign a button for it. So that worked the same. Okay, now we're getting close. So let's start our descent now. Start our descent down to 10,000 feet here. See how it goes. Now we are in the United Kingdom, so our airspeed for the descent can be 250, and above it's 270. I'm not quite sure. It's because in the European Union we are more or less used to 250 knots below 10,000 feet or less. That's actually the main restriction. Except from if air traffic controller advise you to expedite. But it should be the air traffic control that actually is saying you should do it, as you are not allowed to do so. Okay, and we are throttling down here so we can start our descent here. And now we can switch over to the flight plan, and we can go to progress and say activate vector, enter, here we go. And that did not, it's very irritating that I can't do that. Then we have to use the heading knob, and you can press the middle and then it would get to the current heading. There we go, and then we will make a right hand turn. To get out to that interception waypoint there. Oops. Set it back there. Okay, and we can continue our descent here. Or should I say, we shall continue our descent down to let's just say 4,000 feet to the beginning. And I'm not into the charts here in United Kingdom for this particular airport, what the transition altitude is. That's not very nice. Now I can demonstrate what I was meaning by the speed brakes. Now I'm just gonna set it, and you can see how our profile now just lowers the nose and then it goes down. So it is really effective, you can say. Yeah. And as I was saying about details, you can really see the detail here. It's pretty nice, in fact. And then you can see we did a very, very rapid descent there. See how we just nearly plumbing towards the ground there. So now we are at 4,000 feet. And the airspeed, not sure why it did not keep, because it was actually in the flight level change mode. And that is, it should keep that particular airspeed, so that's a bit odd. Okay, let's go to the flight plan and then just go over here and say activate leg, yeah, there we go. Can we then get the aircraft in? Yep, here we go. Let's see how it goes. Yeah, there we go. And now we got a problem because the course is not so right. Okay. Then we can do this instead. Direct to activate. Yeah. But how do we get back to... that wasn't that nice. Because right now... there we go. Now we have to think fast. Let's see. Then we start. That was very annoying. That aircraft actually manually switch over to the ILS. That was actually very much annoying. Okay, well, then I'm just gonna take manual control here. Okay. That was just too much of annoyment. Okay. Let's try radio speed here. Oh. There we go. And it just keeps doing its own. But it's not a backwards ILS as far as I remember. But anyway, we are on the heading now. Then we just have to do it manually. I can also do that, so no problem there. No problem. Let's switch off the autopilot, because then we can just switch off all this crap and then do our job to get the aircraft in for the landing. Okay, there we got the runway. And then we're slowing down here. It's a bit of getting the aircraft into the right configuration here. Slow down, pretty okay. And by the way, if any developers is watching, I'm open for demonstrating other projects. I've said it in the previous video, but I'm trying to get out to as many as possible. Because I really want to do this. Also because I feel often some are just making too good reviews of things. Like they have forgotten some of the key elements of making reviews. You always have to take it from a critical perspective, like you always have to do. Be critical to the information you got. Here we go. Get flaps in there. We are a bit high right now, so we try to see if we can get a better profile here, as well as we're getting the flaps in here. And let's use a bit of speed brakes here to get that airspeed down, as we are quite high. It is a bit of a weird wind we got right now. It is quite steady, but still the aircraft feels a bit funny with the up and down drives here. Oh. Come on. There we go. Smooth as silk. Then we got down. Then we just have to taxi over to our left, and then we are off the runway. Yeah, this is some helicopter starting points, as far as I remember. Yeah, we're crossing right now. So, welcome to Aberdeen. Now I'm just gonna park here because that's it. Okay, parking brake is set. Even though if the brake isn't set, now it is not set, the aircraft is actually not moving at all. So it was, as I was saying in the beginning, that it requires a bit of thrust to move. Of course, if it gets more light, it could be, but at the moment it's not. But it was pretty much the flight. Yeah, the click spot here for shutting down the engine is It's also a bit of a challenge from time to time to find the right position to actually get it working. There we go, off with the power, and we can just switch off all this stuff here, off seat belts for the passengers, and we can go down and open the doors. There we go, and there you got it. Cessna Citation Mustang. A nice aircraft, but it has some quirkiness. You can work around some of it, but again, it feels a bit annoying from time to time. But yeah, that was pretty much it. I hope you got a nice view into it, and it was informative, as I really tried to do my best about that. Even though I know I got high standards. But thank you for watching, and hope to see you again soon. Bye bye.